if I'm not.
Okay. Looks like we're live. And I know every time I say it looks like we're live, it means that we are actually live. But I'm just going to bring up all the streams and make sure we are. So that there's no we're not incorrect or anything. We're not. All the streams are working. All the tech is working. As I've said before, I need a producer. I need someone sitting over here to run the stream so I can run the interview. So, look at all these people tuning in. Thank you so much. Dita, Danielle, Matt, Sam, Steve, everyone tuning in. Thank you so much. Great to see you all in here. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. My name is Matt Bailey. I'm the National Ambassador for the Scotch Malt Whisky Society here in Australia. We go live every single night and have done now for more than a year, enjoying all sorts of topics, all sorts of interviews, all sorts of things going on with it. And I really appreciate everyone tuning in and being a part of these discussions, which I love doing. And I love having special guests on, and tonight is no exception. Please let me welcome Mark Little from Campari, Asia Pacific. Oh, he's good. He's muted.
How you going?
There he is.
How's it going?
Thanks for coming on, Mark. This is great.
Yeah, no worries. I'm from sunny Scotland over here.
Your background was noted, and it's a certain distillery that you have a particular affinity for, I believe.
Yeah, the Glen Grant Distillery.
There we are.
Look at that. Wow.
Oh, look at that. It's almost like you're really there, unless you really are. Thank you so much again for coming on tonight. It's just a chance for us to have a chat, bring something to members, as I said, bring some and enlighten the community of whiskey lovers about some of the other sides of what the game is all about. Of course, your role encompasses a few things, and I just want to introduce what you do there. You're the group marketing manager, I should say, or am I getting the title exactly right?
No, that's right. That's right.
Of Campari Asia Pacific, and it's a fairly diverse company of brands, and it has all sorts of things going on. So, can you give us a bit of background about what what Campari is and what you do there?
So Campari's started off as a brand. It started off as Campari over in Italy. It's based in Italy. It's now become one of the fastest growing spirit companies out there. And it has a diverse portfolio. So it has the bitters and the Italian brands with Campari and Aperol and the Amari. But it also, through a series of acquisitions, has grown. What was it, about 10 years ago? It purchased Wild Turkey bourbon, and then it's also made another number of acquisitions, such as Sky Vodka, Glen Grant, Single Malt, and then it's also created different brands, such as Baron Samedi Spiced Rum, and so my role is a group marketing manager in Australia and New Zealand, and I'm responsible for the dark side of the portfolio. So my offside of Paolo looks after the Italian brands.
No, he looks after the light. He looks after the light. He's the Jedi.
Yeah.
You're the Sith. Got it.
He's Luke. Yeah. So I look after the dark spirits. So I look after predominantly bourbon with Wild Turkey, but also Glen Grant. A love of mine being the Scotch whiskey in the portfolio, but then also the rum portfolio as well, which is Appleton Estate, for those who know it, which is a fantastic rum, as well as Karuba, which is massive over in New Zealand, and Baron Samedi Spice as well.
Oh, right, yeah. I sometimes forget the Appleton Estate one. It sort of passes me by, but I know the rum very well, but I always forget its relationship to Campari.
Yeah. It's Campari's actually, I think it's the largest employer in Jamaica.
Oh, there you go.
Something like that. Yeah.
Got to cut all that sugar cane somehow.
Yeah.
And as a group marketing manager, can you now your background? You've had quite an extensive background in marketing.
Yeah.
And you've gone from Pernod Ricard, William Grant, Campari. It's a lot of spirit marketing in your folio. What does your role look like, and what does a group marketing manager do for those watching at home?
Yeah, well, so I started off actually at Foster's.
Yeah,
and then I've kind of worked between alcohol and charity throughout the years, but predominantly alcohol. My job as a group marketing manager, we've got a team of brand managers, and what we do is really develop the plans for how we're going to promote and advertise the brand, and how we're going to get the brand into people's hands and into their heads as well. So we come up with communication strategies and product innovations and things like that, just to keep the brand top of mind. Brands.
Yeah, and so you're sort of building marketing strategies that are used within Australia and New Zealand.
Yeah,
and your side of things, that's mostly Wild Turkey and Glen Grant, as you said.
Absolutely. Like Wild Turkey is a huge beast. It's one of the top 10 brands in Australia.
Yep.
It's huge with the Glass Spirit and also the RTD portfolio. So that is predominantly that's the largest brand in our portfolio. But then there's like up and coming brands and brands such as Glen Grant, which is taking up a bit of time as well.
Right, and in fact, I was even had Arbaralis ready to go for a dram. I could have a chat on brand with you. Here we go. Oh, there he is. So I'm going to pour one of those now, just so I've got this on hand and ready to go. I'm going to grab some of these comments coming through, and have you got a dram in hand, or you just sitting pretty at the moment?
Oh, it's Wednesday night.
Okay, I got you.
I'll join you.
Matt Wallace tuned in and said, "Big Mark in the game." Daniel Wythe says hello, and
hey Daniel.
And hey, Sam Dunn says, "Hey Matt, always a pleasure to listen to your dulcet tones." Fantastic. Joel Bradbury asks, "Can Mark get me some Cornerstone?" with a cheeky grin.
Very good. Unfortunately, all the Cornerstone has sold out from our warehouses. So it's only really in market that you'll be able to get it. But it's a fantastic drop. The oldest rye whiskey released, I think.
Yeah, so it's part of the Master's Keep range.
Yeah, the Wild Turkey Master's Keep. I think it's the 5th Master's Keep that's been released. There's still a little bit of 1894, which was the Australian exclusive.
And there was and there's the Decades was one of the first ones, I think.
Yeah, so it was a 17-year-old, and then it was a Decades, then it was 1894, and then it was Revival, which was last year. Then this year we've made a move to catch up. Because we had 1894 as our own exclusive, we kind of lost rhythm with the US releases. So this year we've made the call to kind of catch up. So we've released Cornerstone early in the year. And then excitingly, we have got the Masters Keep Bottled in Bond coming out, which later in the year. And that is a 17-year-old bourbon bottled in Bond. I think it's our second bottle in Bond release in the Wild Turkey portfolio. And for those who don't know what bottled in bond means, it's whiskey that's been distilled in one season by one distiller in one distillery. So there's no blending over different ages into the whiskey, which makes it quite a skill. And I haven't sampled it yet, but I've heard rave reviews.
I do like bottled in bond American bourbons. There's something about them. There's some lovely ones out there, but most of them are like 4 or 5, 6 years old, not 17. So it's definitely excited by that. Matt Willis says, "Count me in on that one, Mark." On the
good one, Matty. I know you're a bourbon fan.
And Joel Bradbury says, "Well, poo." Okay, well, we'll take that as a comment, Joel. I want to dig in a little bit on some of the wider industry topics that we wanted to cover off tonight when it came to I guess spirits marketing in general, and some of your expertise here and some of the discussion around it here. So, I've in these interviews, I've had a chat. I've talked with ambassadors, distillers, but I've never quite talked to any sort of spirit marketers before, and I find this fascinating because it's another side of the whole production, if you like, of getting spirit to market is quite important, and
the most important.
Some might say, but if no one had anything to make,
very important.
If not anything to make, then what would you have to sell? There you go. But no, there was a quote from Chris Middleton who once said to me that it's one thing to be able to make it, but it's another thing to be able to sell it. So with the range of the number
Was that all it said?
that's one of Chris's lines.
Yeah, very nice.
You know, Chris, he can get away with saying that. But it's he says that as a quote, almost like it's there's a lot more distilleries coming on board these days, and that's not just across Scotland and Australia and Japan, everywhere these days, of course, in America especially.
Yeah.
How do you see that as a challenge in the overall marketplace for is getting increasingly crowded?
Personally, I don't see it as a challenge. I see it as a good thing, because, I mean, as you know, the world of whiskey is so diverse, and every brand really has its own little role to play. And I guess that's kind of what my job entails. Like the marketing side of things, it's really telling stories, which is like an age-old human endeavor, and every brand has a different story to tell. And the more brands that are out there actually just helps grow a category and grows interest. And often when you're an established brand, when you get a lot of smaller brands coming in, it actually boosts your performance as well. I think gin's a classic example of that. Whereas you look now, I think I read today that there's now 500 Australian gins in the market. And when we talk to the retailers about every year, they've got a what's called a range review, where they look at getting products and putting it onto the shelf. And the majority of products that are put forward at the moment are gins. But the ones that are really kind of doing well from it are the market leaders, such as Bombay and Tanqueray and Hendrix and that. So the more the merrier, I kind of say.
So the more sort of, I guess, smaller brands and craft brands that come onto market actually helps the bigger ones in some ways.
Absolutely. It just gets interest into the category, and then people love to explore, but then a lot of people also like familiarity and safety. So whilst there's an element of exploring, there's also an element of like sticking with your favorites. So, for example, like you would obviously be experimenting with a lot of different whiskies, but from now on, you'll be having an Arboralis quite often, I'd imagine.
It's a very nice whiskey. I was actually talking to Matt Wooler over at Dram Nation about this because he actually put me onto it, to be honest. So there you go.
Go on, Matty.
And he said, "Oh, you got to try this. It's the new no age statement thing." And I said, "Okay, I got to try it." And I said, "It's one of the better no age statements out there." So it's a banger. Well done.
Yeah, no, it's really good.
I'm always skeptical of no age statement. That's why I say that. It's always like, oh, yeah, because every brand has one, and there's always that sort of like, well, they've got a 10, they've got an 18, they've got a 25, and they've got an NAS. And some brands handle the no age statement very well, and others don't. I want to talk a bit about that as well. But you about to say, sorry.
Oh, no, I was just going to do a little plug for what we've got with Arboralis at the moment.
We'll get to that.
Okay.
But just talking on NAS and NAS marketing, that is something that has obviously changed in the spirits game quite a bit. And some brands have never needed to worry about it so much, but many whiskey brands have. So, I mean, we went through a period of marketing in the 90s and even early 2000s where some of the big brands, even ones that you've worked for, promoted as age is everything. So it's to exactly verbatim quote that marketing campaign. But
absolutely. I was working there at that time.
There you go. So that's sort of like, and now we're pushing towards, I guess, provenance and transparency and interest and flavor as a strategy, which I think is far stronger than using an age statement to tell the full story of a whiskey.
It's an interesting that one. Like it's for me, it's a really good lesson in terms of marketing where you should never attack other brands. Like it's as I said, every brand's got a story, and then if you kind of go after another brand, you kind of leave yourself open a little bit. And that was quite interesting, that campaign with I think it was at the time that Johnny Walker released the Double Black, and it came out, and it was it had a bigger intensity to the whiskey, and it was at a higher price point, whereas with no age statement. And then Shivers came out with the Age Matters campaign.
Yeah. Sorry,
then,
Age Matters. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. But when you look at them now they've got their Shivers Extra and
a big push on extra. Yeah.
Yeah, and age isn't everything. Age is good. Age adds things, but it's I think there's a lot to do with the skill of the blender and the flavors that he's trying to produce.
Yeah, and I mean that's something especially that you see has changed a lot in blended whiskey, of course, and that's as the likes of, you said, Johnny Walker, where they've gone towards a strategy of again focusing on flavor with their experimental releases, the 500ml ones of red rye and peat smoke and this and that, those kind of things to engage a younger audience with it as well, of course. But in terms of your folio, so things like Glen Grant, I mean, Glen Grant 10 has obviously he's one of the most awarded single malts within its category. Thanks to the likes of people like Mr. Hat, Jim Murray, and others. It's got a lot of pedigree to it. Yeah. So breaking in with a new no age statement must be something that requires a bit of strategy to get people interested in another no age statement whiskey, if you like.
Yeah. There's a couple of things there. Like the one thing I love about this Arboralis is there's different things that come with different whiskies, and one of the most important thing, I think the most important thing in spirit marketing is the flavor of the spirit that you're selling. And for me, the Arboralis is one of the most pleasant and approachable single malts that I've actually tried. And I've tried a few. Like for me, it's just it's a really elegant whiskey, and it's at its price point, it's kind of one of the better on the market, I'd kind of think. So I think the way that the packaging looks, I think it's absolutely beautiful packaging. The way that it tastes, I think that you have a dram, you'll have another one, and that's one of the best ways to kind of get people on, is just make sure that the flavor's right. And I think this flavor is right.
The flavor and the story, I guess, in many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
And what is the word? Tell us, what does Arboralis? I don't even know what the word Arboralis means. What does that translate into?
Light within the trees. So it's Latin. So arbor, trees, and then lis is light. And it's a homage to. Let me just tell you the story, the spiel. The Glen Grant Distillery was founded by two brothers, and they absolutely loved the distillery. Like, you see it behind me, and it's so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful distilleries in the world, really. And they were so inspired by horticulture and the elegance of nature that they wanted to create something that was equally as elegant. So they, at the time, it was the tallest stills, and they created some really unique purifiers, which still exist, which catches the lighter ethers. So Glen Grant, in essence, is a really light, delicate whiskey. And the 10-year-old is an American oak cask, and that's the one that you mentioned that's winning the awards. The interesting thing...
well, not exclusively, but it got a lot of attention.
Yeah,
for a long time, yeah.
Yeah. The interesting thing about Arboralis is it's a blend of sherry cask and American oak. And having that light, floral, really delicate base spirit blended with the kind of the deeper, the chocolatey notes of the sherry cask, it's the balance of the different woods, the American oak and the European oak. So it's the light whiskey between that. But it's also homage to the tree-lined driveway of the distillery, and you can see, as you see in my background, the light coming through the tree.
For members who like a bit of Glen Grant, of course, the Arborellus is available now, but also it would be remiss of me not to say that you can often catch a Society 9 dot something like the current strawberry jalapeno ice cream on our website. There's only 7 bottles left. Okay, but it was also, in fact, Mark was also going to say sometimes we do see some 38s through the Society, which is Capadonic, which was once called Glen Grant 2.
Oh, wow.
A long time ago. There you go.
Yeah, good one.
Now, there's a question here.
I'll write that down.
Capadonic, yeah. It's demolished. It was demolished in 2002 or something. It wasn't that long ago. The distillery itself. It was across the road from Glen Grant.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So Matt Wooler asks, how is the change in social connection due to COVID-19 now driving Campari, i.e. bunker casting, becoming a two-way street to an end with the audience?
Sorry, what does that mean?
Wasn't like how, I mean, in your times of sort of like in COVID times at the moment for Campari, have you guys had to strategize a different way of communicating to your audience now that bars are closed and restaurants are closed, kind of thing? And there's, how has that changed your communication strategy at all? To some degrees it has drastically. To some degrees it hasn't. I think for Campari, as well as a lot of other distributors and suppliers, the biggest focus was on how we can help people within the on-premise who are being affected by the venues closing, and it's taken a lot of our time and thought, really. And for those who haven't heard, we've got this program called Shaken Not Broken, where we've put a lot of time and resource into helping venues market their products and start bottle-aged cocktail delivery. Cool. We've donated stock to them. We've donated our knowledge in how to produce bottle cocktails. For those who don't know, Campari's got its own plant, which produces a lot of pre-mixed drinks. So we use our expertise to kind of help venues do it. And then we've invested in setting up an online store for people to get onto. So if anyone's interested in kind of helping out one of your local venues, Shaken Not Broken, if you look it up, there's a website there that will help you find your venue closer to you and order online cocktails to have them delivered. You heard it here first. Shaken Not Broken. Look that one up, guys. I want to also big shout out to Emily, Irina, Claire, Jeremy, Nick, everyone who's been tuning in, Alex. Joel Bradbury asks, SMWS Wild Turkey ? Look, never say never, Joel, but, I mean, hook us up, Mark. You know how it works. Anyway, and then there's some people ask,
could. Would you be interested?
Yeah, I think we absolutely would be. Yeah, that would be great. We've got a few American malts coming out and a few American B code casks coming out, but we'd always love that conversation.
Okay, I'll see what I can do.
Excellent. Samuel Licardi, who is a brand ambassador himself, asks, Glen Grant, well, it's not really a question, sorry, it's a statement, but it leads into a question. He says, Glen Grant is a cracker, drank far too much of it over in Italy. And there's a good question there I want to ask. Glen Grant is massive in Italy, and I want to, how did that happen? What is that?
It's I think it's to do with it's the majors, which is the big one over there.
Yeah.
And don't quote me, but I definitely know that being a lighter, more approachable whiskey, it works with the kind of aperitivo as part of their culture. And I also imagine Campari's got some strong relationships over in Italy. So I'm imagining it's part of their route to market.
Yeah, right. Okay.
That's as much as I know, really.
A question from Joel here. He asks, okay, I really like the 10. Any reason, is there any big reason to change to the no age statement? Is it just a different profile? Will the next, do you think the 10-year-old Glen Grant will be phased out?
Oh, absolutely not. No. we're in the process of repositioning Glen Grant in terms of updating the packaging. And as you can see, like, sorry to keep harping on about Arborealis, but as you can see, Matt, the packaging is really quite refined, and there's a lot of kind of the patterns of nature embedded within the outer carton and the bottle as well. And we're definitely we've got a new pack coming towards the end of the year, maybe at the start of the new year, for the 10-year-old, and then that will become like a huge focus. That's definitely what we see as the lead SKU within our portfolio.
Yeah, very cool, very cool. Before I grab a few more audience questions, there's one more I wanted to ask you about, sort of the broader category of spirit marketing. So I was going to say we've come a long way in Scotch whisky marketing, especially since those naff days of it's a gentleman's only drink, and this one's for the men, kind of, and even overtly sexist advertisements of the 60s and 70s that were just atrocious. Sometimes it does fall through the cracks still, and you still see some of it in some spirit marketing, but most of the time people cringe when they see it. I'm not naming any brands. What challenges do you see, however, for the future of Scotch whisky advertising? And although Glen Grant is it's one of many distilleries, but it's in your expertise of working with quite a few brands over the years, what's one of maybe the future challenges or the directions of Scotch whisky marketing that you would see?
I don't know. I don't know if I can really talk to challenges, but for me, spirits marketing or alcohol marketing, it's really grown up, and it's almost been forced to. It's been really quite interesting, more mature and more human, and a lot more welcoming. It's no longer, as you said, the gentleman's club, and as that's happened, you've seen that there's been just a remarkable rise of interest within the category. The single malt in Australia is booming. It's one of the fastest growing categories. But single malt consumption in Australia has got less share than other very similar markets. Whereas in the US, for example, single malt makes up around 25% of Scotch category. Right. Where in Australia it's about 15%. And so I just see single malt, but also the premium side. All these trends are going around spirit marketing in terms of power of place. Like, people are interested in where the whiskies are and where they're coming from and the stories behind them. They're interested in the human stories behind them. People are wanting more experiences. And as you know, the Scotch whiskey is one of the most diverse range of experiences that you can have, and different and most diverse range of stories that you can have. So the way that I kind of see it is, it's just going to keep growing and hopefully keep getting more interesting.
Yeah, it is going to get more interesting, and I agree with your comment about it's grown up. It's found its footing a bit, and as you say, it was almost forced to. It was like it had to, otherwise it wouldn't engage with a wider audience at all.
Yeah,
be stuck doing that fusty bottle at the back of a bar somewhere.
Yeah, and now, like, there's more whiskey bars than there's ever been. There's it's really exciting, and as you've testified, like, your during this time, your sales are going really well. Because people are at home, and it's one of those things that is interesting, and it's when I it's good. That's the other interesting thing about the difference between Scotch and bourbon. What I found is, previously I used to be very much a Scotch whiskey snob until I came to Campari, and I actually got into bourbon, and now I just see that is as diverse and interesting as Scotch, but that still hasn't quite grown up the same way that Scotch has, where
Well, certainly not Australia, no.
No, even though you've got some amazing premium experiences in bourbon, like our own Russell's Reserve, and even our new Long Branch that we've got, but also when you even just Makers and Gentleman Jack and Woodford, there's some lovely bourbons out there. But when I tell people about my job and I mention that I work for bourbon, half the people are like, "Oh, bourbon." But when I mention that I work for Scotch and single malt, I'm like, "Oh, tell me more. Tell me more." Like,
yeah.
It's really interesting.
Which is actually surprising because of how strong bourbon is as a category for export for Australia.
Well, bourbon is by far the largest category of spirits in Australia. It's when you compare full strength glass spirits and premium
dark spirits.
Just full strength spirits.
Right. Yep.
So in the glass spirits, like full strength glass spirit.
Yep.
And you combine it with premix, which is like your ready to drinks. I think it's roughly about 60% of all drinks sold, all spirit drinks sold in Australia is bourbon.
I'm going to just jump in before I get a comment about this, but no, there's no SMWS RTDs coming to the market at all. Sorry, there's no single cask ready drinks coming. Sorry. Anyway, onwards.
you should consider it. But yeah, and it's but it's very established, and it's got its own kind of I guess image issues. But then, and Scotch used to have the similar thing. Scotch used to be that old man, the grandfather's drink, until really what I kind of think of is the Mad Men phenomenon. When Mad Men came on TV and it got a bit of a cult following, and Don Draper was sitting there drinking his whiskey or his old fashioned, and all of a sudden got people interested, and it got pretty cool. And
so what you need, what bourbon needs, what you're saying is a Don Draper or a Harvey Specter kind of character, drinking a Cornerstone rye. That's what we need, right?
That's it.
There's your brand placement right there.
Yeah, or a Matt Bailey.
I've already held this up a few times. I can't do it that many more times. You're on a society stream after all. Sam Dunn says SMWS RTDs. Some of them come in 200 ml. What more do you want? And Joel Bradbury says 15%. Question asking about your 15% of single malts in Australia. Comment before that seems a lot. Seems like a lot more than what he'd heard before. Obviously, has had a jump.
Oh yeah, no, it's been growing. When I was at the previous company that I was at, it was when I started, it was about 9%.
Yeah, right.
So it's starting to catch up. I think the UK is about 18-19%, and kind of growing at the same rate as Australia. So it's really quite interesting. Interestingly enough, like France is one of the biggest markets in the world.
Which one? Sorry,
France. For whiskey and single malt. Yeah.
And they even make a fair bit of it over there as well now.
Oh, do they?
Yeah, I think there's about 5 or 6 prominent French just whiskey distilleries now. That I know of. There's probably way more. It's a bit like asking someone how many distilleries are there in Germany. It's like no one actually knows. Yeah. There's so many like little fruit wine distilleries and things over there. But in France, there's some big ones like Bren and Armoric and things like that.
Are they good?
Armoric's great. Bren's a bit is definitely pitched at the cheaper level, and is a little bit rough last time I tried it, but the Armoric's great. Armoric's great whiskey as well. Yeah. There you go. It was Samuel Lakota says it was everywhere over there. We used to drink Majors as our uni drinker. There you go.
Oh yeah, good one.
Yeah. And get on it, Steve. I'll need to nab a few society turkeys too. Oh, well, I mean, never say never, as I said. This is the conversation to be having. There's a few more questions coming in, but I think they're mostly SMWS related. So Joel, I'll answer that question another time later on. But I want to thank Mark so much for coming on tonight. Thank you so much for being a part of this discussion.
Just one thing for your members. Sorry, I've got to get my plug in.
Yeah, you got to get your plug in. I get it. It's all good.
For those that are interested, Arboralis, as a launch offer, I guess, if you order it online on BoozeBud, so boozebud.com, you'll get for the first 100 bottles sold, you'll get a tasting kit, which will get the Arboralis, a 10-year-old and an 18-year-old. And then on the 4th of June, there will be a live stream, a live Zoom with the master distiller, Dennis Malcolm, and he'll be taking you through the different variants. And it's actual Zoom, so you get to actually him see you and talk to him directly.
Unlike this is just you can ask us questions in the chat, but we're not taking it in the Zoom, except for the Friday night drinks, as you know.
Yeah, it was a cheap dig at you, Matt.
No, I get that. I cop it all the time. There's actually a question here from Sam Dunn. We'll call this the last one. What is the most exciting development in the industry from your side, Mark?
Arboralis.
Oh, this guy.
I think for me, it's the Australian whiskies. Like, as I said, there's 500 Australian gins coming out. That's going to quickly turn to probably 400 Australian whiskies, and I think that's what's really got me. I spent a bit of time with the Godfather Bill Lark down in Tassie, and it was so interesting at the start when there was only 10, 15 distilleries, and then now they're just booming everywhere, and Archie Rose releasing their malt, which is really exciting stuff. Yeah, that's what's kind of getting me pumped up after Arboralis.
The entire Australian whiskey industry is his answer, just beneath Arboralis.
Yeah, so that's Master's Keep and Master's Keep bottled in bond.
Please put one of those Master's Keep bottled in bonds aside for me. I'd love to get one. In the meantime, I want to thank you all for tuning in and having a chat about spirits marketing with Mark Little from Campari Asia Pacific. It's been an honor to have you on. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us. It was good fun.
Easy done. There you go. Ladies and gentlemen, that calls it a night for now. Whiskey Roundtable kicks off in 20-ish minutes through the Oak Barrel, which we have a special guest, David Fitt from the English Whiskey Company, St. George's Distillery, joining us live. And, of course, with all the usual guests, Andy Milne, Scott Fitzsimons, all those people as well. Fantastic. Alex Dallenberg cannot join us tonight. She has a prior engagement. Tomorrow night, you've got our cellar master, Andrew Durbidge, doing the live stream, which gives me a night off, which would be great. And also gives Andrew a chance to talk about some things that are a bit differently here and there. Steve Oates gives this conversation 4 turkeys out of 4. So thank you very much. And then Friday night, of course, is our festival virtual live tasting. All the whiskeys are still in this box. I managed to procure one for myself, even though I had to send my last one to a member, but I managed to get another one. How good is our warehouse? So that's on Friday night with all of our members who are tuning in, who got a festival pack for the Face Shields Festival, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Thank you so much again, Mark. We'll see you soon.
Yeah, absolutely.
And happy dramming. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in. Mark, don't go anywhere. I'll catch you in just a moment, and we'll see everyone else soon. Thanks, everyone.
See you guys. Cheers.